Death Note. Now this, of course, is going to be my spoiler-free review for the Netflix Death Note movie. I will be doing a spoiler discussion after this, so you guys can follow the link in the description if you want to check that out. Getting right into it, this movie already had some issues going into it because, of course, of the whitewashing issue and stuff like that. They had people, or whoever was doing it, they didn't want Asian actors to, go for the role of Light, which I thought was really dumb. So I already had some issues there. If that weren't the case, I wouldn't have as much of an issue with it, because for this, it's not like one of those other things where it's like, oh, they have, like, it's in Japan, and they just have, like, a white actor or anything. I was like, no, it's in the States, they're changing out the races of, like, all the characters. I thought it was interesting. We have, if you want to watch live-action Death Note movies, trust me, there are, like, 4 movies that are already out there, possibly 5 even, that have already existed, and you can just go watch those. I was like, it's cool to me to see like an actual American version. It's not like it's in Japan with American actors. It's like, no, this is like in America. I was curious to see that change. I was actually excited to see it just because I was so familiar with the anime. I'd even seen the live action film. So I was like, I'm actually really curious how this would play out if it was American characters with different, ideologies, and how that would actually play out, because that's such a big part of the story. How would that play out going from a Japanese culture to an American culture where it's actually made here? So I was like, I'm actually curious how they handle that, because just the ideology of being good versus being evil, and customs and things like that in America are, of course, very different than Japan. But like, there's a lot you can do with that, and I was excited going into it. It starts off, has this weird montage where I was like, okay, they do that a lot. They're just, every time they play a song, there's literally like one part where they play a song and it's during a chase sequence. Other than that, I don't really like the song choices that they pick. They pick, especially like the last 2 songs, they choose songs that I swear are in like every 80s movie you've ever seen. Like the first one that they play is literally the song I think of when I think of John Hughes films. They play that song and I was like, can't play that in a serious movie because I'm gonna laugh, because all I'm gonna think of is John Hughes. And then the other song they play during a serious moment and I was like, this just doesn't fit, and it makes me laugh because the song, it just is like a million miles away from how serious. Like every song they chose, they should have just switched out for instrumentals. Like that's what they should have done. There should have been no dialogue. Maybe the opening, they could do it. It was a weird opening, and that was just because it was like, oh, this is weird that they're showing all this school stuff because it's Death Note to me. But it was like, yeah, they can show that because the character is in school, so it's like, sure, just have the little montage of the characters and all that crap. That's fine. Just have an opening montage. All the other ones that they do montages for, I was like, if they just cut all this and just made the instrumental music, I would like it more. Like, just do that and it would be better, to me at least. Because like every time, like I said, the last 2 songs especially, it was just like, I just don't think this fits really well. And I think, like I said, outside of there's a specific chase sequence, I was like, okay, this works here. It fits what's happening. It's like a, it's an instrumental song, and it's upbeat, and it fits with the pacing of what's happening because it's an action sequence sort of. Everything else, I just don't think fits. The opening is, like I said, it's fine. It's literally the opening, so there's no, it's not breaking from anything. It's the start of the film, so it's fine. But all the other moments where they choose music, I was just like, maybe just no, I guess is the best way to put it. Just a different song, or no songs, just an instrumental moment, something like that would be better. But going into it, have the first montage, you get to see Light, you get to see Mia. The first thing Light does, it's been a minute since I watched the anime. I have seen the anime, so I'm one of the people where it's like, I'm a fan of the anime, how's this going to play out? The first thing he does, and because it's been a long time, I'm like, I have to give it some leeway because I don't remember everything from the anime. But the first thing he does, literally the first thing I see him do, I'm like, I don't think Light would actually do that. Could be straight from the anime though, because just where things go with his character. But I was like, yeah, it shows how smart he is, but I don't think he was that sort of character. If anything, he's almost the opposite of that, where he would do something else. I'm not going to get into specifics, but once you see it, it's like, I just don't think he would do that, and he'd probably do the exact opposite of that, where, instead of helping, he'd hurt in a little situation. It's like literally the first thing he does. The second thing he does is like, alright, that kind of fits a little bit. It just doesn't play out as cool as I think it would have in the anime if it were to happen. But then, things kind of continue on. And this is where we get to, honestly, one of the best moments in the entire film is when Ryuk shows up. And it's really funny. It's really funny how this plays out, because you have this cool moment where Light has the Death Note, and he sees Ryuk for the first time. Ryuk is super awesome in this. Like, the way they shoot Ryuk, the way he's typically, either he's in the background and it's blurry, or if it's even a close-up shot, you can't see perfect detail. It's always dark. He's always in the shadows. It's a brilliant way to do it. His eyes are always lighting up. There's one shot where he's literally like out of focus. Like all you can really make out are like his two eyes. And I was like, that's a great shot. Like some of the shots in this are phenomenal, honestly. And most of them revolve around Ryuk because they do like stuff where he's in the shadows and he's behind things and you see like his silhouette. And it's like every shot, pretty much every shot they have with Ryuk is just super cool to me. And I'm like, that's great. So Ryuk shows up, they have this cool little shot with like some marbles roll on the ground. It's literally like a 2-second shot. And I was like, that just looked cool. Then it goes into the suspense of like first seeing Ryuk. And then it cuts from this epic suspenseful moment where it's like, oh, there's Ryuk, and they have this cool mystery moment, to one of the funniest things I've ever seen because it gets crazy. And I can't spoil it, but it's at the 8.5-minute mark, I do believe. I had to check because I was just, honestly, I was going to record the scene and just put it up on YouTube because it was so funny. I was like, I can't do that though. But it's super funny. So just go to like the 7-minute mark, I think is where that scene starts, where they first meet each other. And it starts off cool, and then it like, it's just so freaking ridiculous. And that was another thing. That's, you know, you have like 3 moments, I guess 4 moments technically, with some stuff that happened with Light. And it was like, once again, that is not what would happen with Light. So by that time, it was like, okay, this is not going to be the Light that is super cool and super smart. Maybe, you know, super smart, they definitely show that element to it. But super cool, not at all. Like, not in the slightest. He's not the cool, calm character that you see in the anime. Like, at all, really. Like, he's just not cool at all. So I was like, alright, well, let's see what happens here. And then we go into the actual stuff of the Death Note and people dying. The deaths in this, very crazy. Also good. Super gory. Not what I was expecting. It was beyond what I thought was going to happen for the gore. But, man, the first death, they don't shy away at all. And then after that, they continue not to shy away from the brutality of it. They even add brutality. Like, there's a moment where someone dies, and all I can say is they're standing still. The way they die, I was like, okay, you could die from that, but their body literally breaks apart, and, like, when they die, and I'm like, that would not happen physically unless something else would need to change. Like, there would need to be some increase in something particular. But your body would not separate like that. So they kind of add to the gore in some elements. And I was like, you know, they kind of take it overboard, but it's still good. It's like, it's, you know, really visceral and over the top. And it's just like, wow, this is dark. Like, it works. It works really well. So the deaths are definitely good. Ryuk is awesome. It goes through. Light ends up meeting Mia, who's the American version of Misa's character. She's totally different. And then they introduce L. And L starts off really, really good. It's like, okay, this is L. He's totally like he is in the anime. And then they have some stuff go on. He's L. He goes through. And then they get to this point. It's in the trailer, actually. The part where they're at the diner. And that's a great sequence. That is actually, that's probably the best sequence in the entire film, is when they're at the diner. Because I was like, this is Death Note. Like, what's happening right here? This is Death Note. And there's a very particular line that I loved, that L said. About it involves chess, and it was like my favorite line in the whole movie. I was like, that is definitely L. I don't think that this particular situation would ever happen, but it was really a cool moment. Like, considering the actual character of L, that particular thing wouldn't happen the way that it did. I personally don't think it would, not exactly, but this is like a slightly altered version, so it was like, alright, I can accept that this version of L would do that. I don't think the original version of L would have done that. But it is some of the dialogue is definitely something that I feel he would say if he happened to have this interaction, which he actually does at some point, you know, in the anime. It's close to things that happen. And I was like, this is a great moment. Like, this is Death Note 100%. And then that's unfortunate because everything else around it, both before and after, you know, you get glimpses of Death Note, but just, it's so different. The essence is just not really there. You know, Light's character is not super cool. He's smart, but they barely even show that. Like, literally, the first thing he does, they show how he's smart, and the very end of the movie, they show something that he planned. Other than that, he's just writing names in the notebook. And it's like, there's so many factors to it. And they can't really do it because they cut out so much, of course, because they're condensing it into, like, an hour and 40 minutes. But there are moments where it's like, yeah, he writes names in the Death Note, but as things progress, he has to get smart about how he does it. And it can't just be, I'm doing this, I'm just writing names in notebooks and blah, blah, blah. And so things continue forward, and it's like you have, it's supposed to be this match between you know, the good genius and L, and then the evil genius with light. And it's just not like that. Like he just writes names in the Death Note, and then that's pretty much it. And then L does something, and then that's it. And then they clash. And I was like, well, there's not really any genius stuff going on here outside of like one little thing. And there's some stuff that they do with L, like when he first shows up, how he figures out where Kira is located. It's like, okay, half of it they explain, and then the other half they don't really explain, because there's like a specific thing where he's like, this is where I believe Kira is. It's like, okay, this is how he got to that point. It's like, alright, that makes a lot of sense. And then there's another thing where it's like, this is what Kira has to do to kill people. It's like, how'd you get that though? Because I don't, like, it's a little risky. It kind of fits in a little bit with the anime, but it didn't seem to have the same sort of nuance to it, because it was kind of just like, in the anime, they take like, literally, all they had to do was one extra step to figure it out. It's kind of effed up, so maybe that's why they took it out, and I won't spoil that, but there's a particular thing that L does to figure out exactly how Kira is doing everything. And in the anime, it's a little messed up, the way they do it exactly, and then that's how he figures out exactly what needs to happen. It's like, okay. In this, though, he just takes like an instantaneous leap, and then he happens to be right about it. And it was like, oh, well, that's, you know, like, it works, but at the same time, it's not as intellectual as it was in the anime. Although, like I said, it was kind of effed up the way they did it, but they didn't really know. It was just like a theory, but he still had this very particular theory, and it ultimately, it was kind of messed up the way they did. I wish I could, so I'll talk about that in my spoiler thing, because that was always one of the interesting things. I was like, he did something that I always thought was kind of messed up, but it's like the greater good sort of thing. But yeah, I was like, okay, so kind of leaps and bounds on that particular moment, but he has some things. And then, you know, I'm going to kind of jump around for moments here. There's something that happens at the end of the movie that I didn't realize this until today. So, what L did, and you know, I won't go into details, but he figures something out, and it's like, this is why I believe this is where Kira is located. And so this thing happens, and I was like, okay, that makes perfect sense. And then we go through the whole movie, and we get to the end of the movie. And there's a thing that gets revealed at the end of the film, and I was like, you know, when I was watching it, it was just like, okay, this is just meant to be a moment. And then afterwards, I thought about it, like, that is dumb. Because L, as the genius character, should have been able to know this thing that's revealed. And the main reason for that is because the thing he figures out is literally the exact same thing that's revealed at the end. There's just one extra step. Like, it's literally like, this is how I found out where Kid is. And if he just went like this, that's what's revealed at the end. Like, it's literally the same thing with one extra step. And it's like, how would he not have figured that out? And honestly, well, I can't really get into detail, but it just had to be at the end, because otherwise, I guess the movie would have been super short. I guess that's the best way to put it. The movie would have been super short, and you'll probably be able to figure it out just as you're watching it, like, why, you know, I wasn't thinking about it at the time, because it was just like, I'm just going through the motions watching this movie. But once I thought about it, I was like, that's really stupid, because he should have been able to figure that out as well, because that was literally how he figured out where Kida was this train of thought, but somehow he stopped right before this super epic moment that probably would have cut off like 40 minutes of the movie. In all honesty, the movie would have been over. But I'm like, somehow he just didn't find that part out, that one particular thing, he just didn't know. And it was like, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense that Elle couldn't have figured that extra step out when it's literally along the same path as to the answer that he stopped at. And it's just like, I don't think so. I just don't think that doesn't make any sense to me, how Elle could miss that next step. Literally the next step. And somehow he just missed it. So I was like, that's dumb. That doesn't work. But going backwards to some of the other stuff that happens, Mia, I actually like. That's like one of the few differences that I like. Elle was cool at first, and then he got really stupid towards the end because he's not Elle anymore. It's like, he was Elle at first, and then they made their version of Elle for the second half of the movie, but they tried to connect to the original version of Elle. And it's like, you can't have the original version of Elle, which you did accurately, and then go into your version of Elle and try to still connect to the original version of Elle. Because it just comes out as a character that does stuff that's dumb, that just isn't what the character does. I could see the character doing that if they ever got to that point, but that's like the whole point of the character is that they never get to a certain level. And it's like, it just breaks away from that, and it's like, nope, that just doesn't work. Maybe that's what, like I said, if the character ever got to this specific point, sure, but the whole essence of the character is that they don't. They can't, that can't happen. So they changed the essence of him. Like I said, the whole thing with Light is that he's just not Light. He's not super smart. He's not super cool. He's just a dude writing names in notes. That's literally it. That's all he does. He just kills people. He's not super cool about it. He's not super smart about it. He just is about it, and that's it. Mia is kind of cool. The essence is totally off because she's almost like the exact opposite of what she is. A little bit like she's in the anime and stuff. She's like really ditzy and stuff, and she's kind of working with Light. And then in this, she's not ditzy at all, and that's about as far as I can go with it. But things go a little bit further beyond to change who she is and who Light is. And it's like, it's a cool difference. It's actually, it just makes the story interesting and dark. But it just kind of, I don't know, I guess it adds to the fact that Light isn't cool. I guess that's the big issue with it. Is like, it makes her character super cool. And then it's like, well, he's supposed to be the super cool one. And they almost like reversed it a little bit and just made him super, super like useless. You know, it's not like he's ditzy or anything like Misa is in anime, but just useless almost. And things happen. Then there's stuff with Ryuk that he does that's totally different from the anime, but that's another thing I like. Like the things they change about like his ally characters, that I actually liked. It's totally different. It's a completely different essence, but those are the things where it's like they change it around, but it's entertaining. Unfortunately, all of those cool differences are solely directed based on the fact that Light is not super cool, and it's really unfortunate because it's like, none of this cool stuff would be happening with these characters. Like these very, very different interactions between Mia and Ryuk versus, you know, what they do with Light. Totally different. And the only reason that happens is because Light is not nearly as cold and calculating as he is in the anime, which, you know, is like the whole reason things work with these characters. And in this version, it's like, man, it's so cool that they do this, which is different, and it's stuff that you know, I wasn't expecting because I know the story of the anime. So it's like, oh, that's very different. And I was like, I like that dark side of what they're doing with these two characters. Unfortunately, the only reason this stuff is cool is because this stuff with the main character is super, super dumb. And it's like, that's really unfortunate, but that's why those characters are cool. Or at least their interactions with Light are much different and entertaining still, because they're different than what I thought was going to happen in the anime. And it's like, okay, I like these changes, like that's cool, but it all stems from a dumb part of the story, which is sadly the main character of the story. So, cool interactions that are very different than the original story, but it stems from a bad main character. And then it continues on, and it gets like just really crazy, and I still, you know, by the end is like, it's just, it's not Light. It's not Light at all. It's not Misa. But like I said, I still like her because she's darker. So it's at least entertaining to watch. With him, it's just like, he's just not cool. He's not cool. He's not dark. He's not smart. He's nothing that he is except a guy who got the DeathNote. Like, he's just Light. That's all he is. Like, that's about as close as he gets to being the actual character, is a name and the fact that they say he's smart. And he does like two things at the beginning and end of the movie that are smart, and that's it. That's it. So it's just like, man, they completely ruined that essence. They, as the movie continues on, they lose the essence for L. During the chase sequence, they don't edit. There's like one part that they should have just edited like literally a second earlier, 2 seconds earlier, but they didn't. I don't know why the editor left that in there. I'm just saying, that's, everyone can see it, but as someone who does videos, that really got me, and I was just like, oh, why didn't? I can't believe they left that. Why wouldn't you edit 2 seconds early? It's just like, oh, it really got me. But yeah, it's a movie. It has some cool elements to it for sure. The death stuff is awesome. Ryuk sounds awesome. The visuals for Ryuk every time they shoot him, great. The changes in Mia are cool, but like I said, the changes that they do for Mia and Ryuk as far as the way they interact with Light is cool, but it comes from a crappy place. So it's like the foundation is dumb. So it's like, all I think of is the only reason this is happening is because of this, which is unfortunately stupid. These parts are cool, but the base of it is dumb. So it's like, it still weighs it down, where it's like, I like it, but it just comes from a dumb foundation. So it's like, that's really unfortunate. The way they end the movie, just the way everything happens really is just so different from the anime. Like this, it made me think a lot of the Blame movie that they have on Netflix, which I did a review for that, and it was the same thing where it was like, Blame, the Netflix anime movie, is so different from the manga that I read that it was weird. But I love the Blame movie. Like, they still capture the essence. They just changed the story around where it's like characters meet in different ways and stuff like that. And it's like, that's really weird because I was expecting this story and this is what happened, but I still loved it because I was like, it captures the essence, it captures the characters and who they are and how they act and what they do is still there perfectly, just in a totally different story. Just tonally, well, not tonally, but the way the characters meet, like I said, and how things happen in a certain order, very different from what I read in that manga years ago. With this, it's just different and not even really good at parts, and that's the unfortunate thing. Like with Blame, it's like it's totally different. I don't know how they could go next with the way they kind of pick and chose what to do from the manga. And this is like, they pick and chose stuff, but it's a lot harder to change because the whole point is this battle between these two guys, and they change the whole battle by changing the two characters from who they used to be. And it's like, well, it's not like Blame where you can change a little bit or even change a lot and it still fits. With Death Note, it has to be like, some stuff just has to be there for it to work. And they almost take out almost 70% of what makes it work, they take out. And most of that comes from Light not being the character he's supposed to be. So it just falls apart. We'll see what happens in the future because I'm just going to tell you guys, they do tease a sequel. I don't know how in the world it would play out. That's like the one thing, I could think of something right now with the way they ended this, even though I didn't like it that much. With the way they ended this, I could think of some ways where it could be awesome, even though it would not be Death Note in any regard whatsoever. Just story-wise, it would be like literally brand new stuff because the stuff they change is so drastically changed. By the time you get to the end of this movie, it's like there's literally no connection outside of character names for whatever they end up doing for the sequel. That is all that will happen because this stuff is just so different by the end of the movie. But I could think of some stuff where I'm like, this could be how it'll be cool, but I don't really know because of what this movie is. I just don't know. I don't know if they'll do the cool stuff I'm thinking of in my head, but excuse me. It's just crazy. It's a really weird adaptation. Some stuff is really cool. The deaths are great. Willem Dafoe's Ryuk sounds really cool. The shots, like I said, are really great for that. Mia's change is cool, but stems from a bad base. L's change is dumb because they did him so well. That's the craziest thing. They did him great in like the first half of the movie, and then he just changes, and it's like, well, dang, they did it perfectly at first, or at least it was different enough where I'm like, this is still L. He does some stuff that I think is a bit out there where I don't think L would do this, but I'm like, I could still be cool with that. And then it just changes 100%, and it's like, nope, it just doesn't work anymore. But that is Death Note. I have to get into all the extra details of what is screwed up in this in my spoiler discussion, but I feel like especially with the length of my video, I didn't want it to be this long, but I feel like I got enough in there. But if you've seen it, would love to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Don't know if I can recommend it, but definitely go to like 7 minutes, watch this first scene of Ryuk and Light because it's super suspenseful, super hilarious. At least check that out, but would love to know what you guys think, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.